Ladies and gentlemen, this is Dustin Perry from Ghost Hunters and Ghost Hunters International, and you are tuned into the PARAnomaly ZONE.
Look, I know the supernatural is something that isn't supposed to happen. It does happen.
A ghostly apparition in the dark of night.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Hey there, ponderers of the paranormal and fans of true crime podcast content. My name is Patrick Koffenberg, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host with the ghost, the paranormal poster boy himself, the still fairly pasty paranormal poster boy himself, Mr. Michael Carbno. Good to see you, Mike. Are you ready to dive into some grossness when it comes to Ed Gein, the butcher of Plainfield?
Yeah, the butcher,
the ghoul,
the Plainfield butcher, the Plainfield ghoul, and the grandfather of gore. I have heard that he has been called.
Man alive,
which fits because this guy, we've talked about some pretty bad stuff.
Yeah,
with Mr. Bundy and Mr. Gacy, but this goes beyond horrifying.
Oh, it's such a different. Like you said, Mike, it's horrifying and it's grotesque.
Well, extremely.
And it's as far as the Ed Gein is definitely. I hate using this term as well. Definitely not the most prolific murderer out there. He confessed, to just 2 murders. He's a suspect of potentially up to 9, maybe more. At least missing people are kind of connected to Mr. Gein, suspected to be connected. But man, as far as notoriety and influence on pop culture, I mean, Mr. Ed Gein, holy Toledo.
And movies that were inspired by this guy, like Psycho. And we can go into that if you want. Why? Silence of the Lambs. Obvious reasons for that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yes.
Not that he was a big user of the chainsaw, I believe, but
no,
he did kill with claw hammers and whatever. I mean, just horrifying.
This guy is. We're going to do our best to dive into the psychosis, dive into the mind, what was making this man tick. It's been done 1,000 times over, but it's never been done by the PARAnomaly ZONE. So,
right. We're not saying it's going to be really great, but,
Hey, let's say, we definitely need to preface it though, Mike. This is our first dive into true crime. I mean, we have covered, as you mentioned, other serial killers. We have dove into we definitely have covered a lot of macabre content before, particularly in our Sick and Twisted series. We've covered everything back in the day as the Alternate podcast, from the Iceman, Richard Kuklinski, to Jeffrey Dahmer, you name it. And most recently, we did a Patreon special about Mr. John Wayne Gacy, the killer clown himself. We focused on the haunting, the paranormal aspect of Mr. Ted Bundy, but this is going to be our first dive into true crime. I'm looking forward to it, Mike. And I need to ask you right off the bat, and let's think about this. Why the fascination with serial killers, and why the fascination with the grotesque, the macabre, Mr. Ed Gein, among many others? What pops into your mind right away? I'd like to know.
It's immediately
your doggy
fascinating.
Your doggy wants to speak up too, apparently.
Yes. It's like I said, it's immediately fascinating And if you have any inkling of an interest on this type of history or events as just a curiosity, or what limits that the human can push as far as atrocities and horror that they can actually commit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like taking an extremely scary movie and taking it one step further and learning and studying on things that have actually really happened. You can experience this stuff through learning and reading about it in the safety of your own home. You don't have to, it's not like you're there experiencing it, but you're finding out all the details, and it's a fascination. It's like sitting in the dark watching a scary movie, even.
Okay, it's
you're getting a fright out of it, and
sure, I get it. Is it almost as well like we're fascinated by the abnormal? I mean, let's just
sure,
the frank. We're fascinated by the capability of the human mind, the capability of how the depths of depravity that we can sink to. I'd like to think of you and I as normal, Mike, and so we just cannot help wondering and trying our best to understand what makes these whacked out minds tick.
Yeah,
it's because
like the typical.
Is it because we're fascinated with what we're afraid of? We're fascinated by the unknown. I mean, or both. I mean, so many things.
And it's like, like it's going to say the typical driving past a car accident and you slow down and look. I mean, it's like almost automatic.
Yeah. Yep.
And these things, knowing that they actually happened, and it's pushing yourself to the limit of how much you can stand as well.
How much you can take. Right.
Yeah. By learning about something like this, or hearing about what was done and the depths of depravity.
Yeah. I was thinking about this when we were diving into the haunting of Ted Bundy, which we focused on the potential paranormal link to Bundy and his crimes. We highly encourage you to go listen to that episode. It was fascinating. No, like, lack of a better term, absolutely fascinating. And I remember coming across several articles that included quotes from surviving family members of the victims and how they are very angry with the continued media obsession with Ted Bundy, and they're saying like our sisters, our cousins, our daughters are dead, and his murderer is still almost
famous.
He is famous, but he's he's glamorized, and
and then it actually is. I mean, and it's become such a, like Ed Gein and all these people like this, they've become a part of pop culture that people get obsessed with. I mean, it keeps it takes away from what they actually did and more glamorizes them, the people.
Oh, sure.
And that's going to be terrible for the families of the victims.
Yeah, and
they'll never get away from it.
They never will, and their loved ones will never come back. And I absolutely 195% understand it. But I also, I brought that up because I do think it's important to continue talking about people like this. I mean, because we really do need to try and understand as much as we can. I mean, as impossible as it may sound, maybe someday we can understand them enough that we can see the warning signs earlier.
Right.
We can prevent it from happening. And it is important to me. And it's definitely not, we personally are definitely not trying to continue, the glamorization. That's the only word I can think of off the top of my head right now, of these sick bastards. But it's important to continue talking about.
Yeah, like Gacy, with him, there's a prime example of all the signs that were shown, and it was just let go because he's of who he was, of what he showed of himself, like the clown, the children, visiting children in hospitals and things like that. But there are so many things that if it would have all been put together and looked at, he could have been put away a long time before he was.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Some of his victims.
We need to learn.
There was a victim of his who went right to the cops after having an unbelievably horrifying night of attack under John Wayne Gacy, and the cops didn't do anything about it. They're basically, and we covered this already. We're not going to talk about more John Wayne Gacy. Yeah. Go check it out on our Patreon page. Actually, that's one of our latest exclusive episodes on the Patreon page. Over 40 exclusive episodes and over 200 posts already, and we're just getting going. If you enjoy the content of the podcast, we know you will love the Patreon content. You can join up for as little as $1 a month, and that's no joke. I mean, we really do think you will enjoy it. We're having a blast, and we'd love to see you guys there.
Right.
Well, Mike, without any further ado, man, let's just dive into it. Mr. Ed Flippin' Gein, the ghoul of Plainfield. Okay, Mike, how do you want to tackle this? Do you want to lay some groundwork here, lay some basic facts? What do you have? How would you like to go about this
I
disturbing?
just have my typical bullet notes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Different situations. I got a piece up here on my phone that I was kind of perusing through.
Did you mean bullet points, by the way?
What did I say?
Bullet notes.
Yep.
Same thing.
Same, whichever.
Yeah, same thing. Which, by the way, that was Mr. Gein's gun of choice, was a 22 that he decided to supposedly use, I should say, in deposing of his victims. But Mr. Ed Gein, Mike, do you want to take this? Or you want me to handle some of these basics?
Do you want to go with, starting at the beginning? He was messed up from the beginning, and thanks to his loving mother.
Oh, God.
I mean, if you want to put a little bit of a context there about what possibly started him on this path.
Well, I got my professional notes here, right there. Edward Theodore Gein, born August 27th, 1906.
Yes, 1906.
Passed away 1984. Son of Augusta and George Gein. Ed also had a brother, Henry, who ended up dying mysteriously later on. We'll get to that.
Right.
But
Augusta Wilhelmina Gein.
Let's start with his parents. Not a happy, normal childhood for Mr. Ed Gein. And I want to preface all of this by saying we are not making excuses for this man.
Absolutely not.
Whatsoever. But both Augusta and George had their own issues, Mike. Would you say that is a fair statement?
Well, absolutely fair. I think his father was a bad alcoholic and just really not any kind of a father figure whatsoever.
Well, he was physically abusive of his kids.
And physically abusive, yep.
Absolutely. And basically a fall-down drunk, kind of like you said.
Yeah, exactly.
He was employed now and then, but basically spent a lot of his time unemployed. Augusta was a domineering wife, to say
but a God-fearing woman.
You think?
And she would consistently tell her son that sex was evil and women were the instruments of the devil. I mean, he was taught this from a young age.
Yeah, all women except her, of course.
Oh, except for her, she was the perfect loving mother.
All women were promiscuous or downright prostitutes. That's basically what she taught her kids.
But, in return, he loved his mother, just, the inspiration for Psycho. It was, he loved his mother. His mother, was everything to him. And, that's one of the things that he had in mind when he was doing what he did.
And, I think it's important to point out as well that not only did she just pound into her children's minds that, aside from their strict religious beliefs and actions, however you want to describe it, but she also said any sort of deviant sexual thoughts is absolutely forbidden. I mean, these are
Complete
normal
evil.
young. Any normal young boy growing up is going to be like, I feel funny down there for some reason, And this mother beat it into their minds that nope, that is evil. You cannot think that, and so right away you can think of repression that's happening to these kids, particularly Ed, who, just stuff that normal human feelings. It's burned into his brain that those are wrong, and so that's very that's very important, I think.
It is, but so what question I have is that when all of this stuff was pushed into his head and it was forced upon him, but yet his mother and father always told him to never go in the barn, because that's where they slaughtered their animals and things like that. But he, after school one day, as a young child, he snuck into the barn where his mom and dad had a pig strung up and to butcher. And he said that when they gutted it and opened it up, he got sexually aroused seeing that.
Yeah, with all the intestines being pulled out and disemboweled, and he found that enjoyable. So
where does this come from? I mean, is it because of his mother twisting everything around and in a confusion? That's what he got excited about, and I don't understand. I just don't understand,
either, man. I don't. Like I said, it's almost as if he was trying to repress his normal, natural feelings so much that they were just dying to come out in any manner whatsoever. And maybe he had some sort of physical disgust by seeing this butchering of the hog, and he was somehow excited by his own physical disgust, and it kind of manifested as a sexual arousal. I mean, I'm really digging here, but we don't know.
Any theory,
have no idea.
Nobody will ever know for sure. But I mean, it also points towards something like everything that his mother instilled in him. There is already something that was there that was extremely twisted.
Yeah.
That all of this stuff that his mother did mixed in with that was already there for some reason, some crossed over wires in his brain or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then whatever, issue that was already there was just mixed up with all this other stuff in it. And then that's the way it came out. I don't know.
That's how it manifested. Yeah. So Mike, I mean, this isn't exactly important. I mean, I'm going to show my ignorance here because I'm confident in my intelligence. I'm confident in my level of intellect.
You're competent or confident?
Confident, and
okay.
So I'm willing to admit when I do not know stuff.
Sure.
I have an idea, but I'm not certain. So I'm going to ask you. It says that his dad was Ed's dad, obviously George, worked as both a carpenter and a tanner. Please,
yes.
I'm having a brain malfunction here,
go.
thinking about. I have an idea. I think I know what tanner is, but please please explain what a tanner does.
It tans hides and
there you go.
Leather and things like that. It's like taking the skins from the animals and fixing them so they're preserved and dried out. Ed obviously learned from his father the art of tanning.
This plays into his story later on, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's something to keep in mind.
You could actually call Mr. Gein, Ed Gein, a master tanner.
Well, there you go. Why not?
Yeah,
I guess master tanner
and
it is.
If you can actually Google and see pictures of his work.
Well, going along here now with Mr. Ed Gein. Ed, as you said, Mike, grew to have an unnatural connection, basically, maybe unnatural is too strong of a word. He had an obsessive relationship with his mother. I think that's safe to say.
Yeah.
So
It is definitely a Norman Bates type of a relationship.
Right. Now, Ed's dad eventually died. As we mentioned, he was an alcoholic, and I believe he died of heart failure when he was
Right.
66. I want to check my note here. I think it was when he was 66 years old. Yes, died in 1940, 66 years old. And now it was down to Ed, his brother Henry, and his mother. And his mother continued to be the domineering self, even more so now that the dad was out of the way. Dad, father figure. Not that he was a father figure by any means anyways, but as far as we know. No more male figure in his life other than his brother. And Ed just grew closer and closer, more dependent on his mother. And now we get to the point, though. Henry, Ed's brother Henry, when he grew up and he matured, he started to kind of talk back to his mom. He started to show his disagreement with her preaching, her teaching. He kind of put his foot down a little bit. And it is theorized that this didn't sit well with Ed.
Right.
How do we want to tackle that when it comes to Henry, his brother's mysterious death? Connected or not connected?
Well, in my opinion, Ed would have had plenty of reason to, in his mind, plenty of reason to get rid of Ed because, first thing is the way Ed felt about his mother. He's not going to put up with anybody disrespecting or talking back to his mother. So there's one thing. And also, as obsessed as he was with his mother, he would have wanted to get rid of any competition that he had that took any of the attention away from his mother. With his brother gone, it's all on him.
That's a key word. The key word, I think, is, like you said, my competition.
Right, exactly. And I'm sure that's what he felt. It was, he just wanted every bit of the attention from his mother spent on him.
Now, on May 16th, 1944, on the property, not the house, but in their farmland, essentially, a fire was started, a controlled fire that kind of got out of hand.
Right.
Long story short, Henry died. Ed reported Henry as missing.
Right.
Now, this is where it gets kind of wishy-washy here, kind of definitely suspicious. Somehow, even though he reported his brother missing, when authorities arrived on the property, Ed was able to lead them straight to the dead body of his brother, Henry. Even though he reported him missing. Okay, I guess.
And didn't they find that he died of asphyxiation?
Yes, asphyxiation, and also another one said of heart failure. So I'm going to go by the asphyxiation.
Right.
But what's interesting about this, Mike, is that according to authorities, Henry's body was not burnt. Henry's body, his head in particular, was discovered to have bruises on and about his head, his skull area. Similar to those found on victims of blunt force trauma.
Right.
Bludgeoning. Some people think, Mike, that this could have very well been Ed's first murder, his own brother. What say you on this?
Well, I would say that chances are much better than 90% that yes.
I mean, come on. I mean, like I said, it's just so suspicious reporting his brother missing, but yet knowing exactly where the body is.
Yeah, it just doesn't fit as the way it should.
Now, what would be the reasoning, Mike, to you, why he would go about murdering his own brother?
Well, just like what we said about the getting rid of that competition.
100%.
Yes.
100%. And angry.
And anger.
At his brother for how dare he speak up to their beloved, ultra caring, ultra nurturing, and protective mother.
Mm-hmm.
How dare you put your foot down, oh Henry? Yeah, I for one truly believe that Ed is responsible for his brother's death, and I don't think I'm going out on a limb by saying that
Oh, absolutely.
by any means. Further
I
down the
totally
road,
agree.
further down the road, Mike, further down the Ed Gein wacky timeline. What the hell are you drinking? What is that?
It's a little bottle of water.
That's like the smallest bottle of water I've ever seen.
Yeah, you can buy them that small.
That's like smaller than your palm.
I think it's like 8 ounces or something like that.
What?
I am hydrating myself. You are dehydrating
You
yourself.
realize that an 8-ounce bottle, you would have to drink 8 of those tiny little things to meet your required daily water intake. So,
yeah, but then I got to pee too much. So
you need to do it though, Mike. You need to hydrate yourself. Yes, and you say I'm dehydrating myself because I'm enjoying my Coors Light.
That's
but
right.
I every day talk about being obsessive. I overdo my water intake, and I have done that for almost 20 damn years now.
That's
So
right.
I am
remember
hydrated
you
as
saying that.
hell. And then when it's
That's
time to
good.
do the podcast, I'm like, it's time to sit back, crack open a Coors or two, and not
all
worry
that water.
about it.
That's why your skin looks so supple.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I think Ed Gein would like my skin.
Oh, he would love it. Yeah, he would skin you like a
Good Lord.
like a pig hanging on a hook.
Oh, good God, yeah. This, I call this creation Patrick. I don't know.
He would take your face and your back skin and make a backpack out of it
Oh, wonderful,
with
wonderful.
straps from your like skin off of your legs or something.
Well, there weren't be any hair, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know why I said that. That was interesting.
Yeah, he would make a tie
Uh-huh.
out of a nooses, and yours would be like right there, on
Right
that
at the
one
top.
part.
Oh,
right
awesome.
at the top,
Okay, a tie out of anuses.
and a noose tie,
Well,
and that's not pushing it
it isn't
too far,
No.
folks, because the things that he did
Yeah,
with intimate parts,
the
of-
items found in his house of horrors are beyond comprehension, and we will definitely get to that. After
Yeah,
a
we'll
little
get
bit.
to that.
Well, Mike's Ed's mother eventually passes away after a series of strokes on December 29th, 1945, at the age of 67. Now, as abusive as she was mentally to her kids, as wrong as the info she kept pounding into her children's heads was, as religious as a fanatic of a nut that she was Ed's world. Ed actually said that his mother was not only his best friend, his only friend, but his one true love.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's another like a Norman Bates line there.
One
Boy's best friend is his mother.
No. See, okay, I love my mom more than anything, okay?
Right.
But to call her my one true love, no, that is just not,
Yeah.
no.
That's taking the sickness a little bit deeper.
A little deeper than I think us normal folk intended to mean. But yeah, Mr. Ed kind of went off. Mr. Ed.
Yeah, and some say that's what happened to Wilbur.
I think so. Hey, Mr. Ed's here. What do you have to say, Mr. Ed? Hey, good to see you. Sorry about that.
I am Mr. Ed. Anyway,
well, okay, he goes off the deep end even more so. Ed decides to, and I'm not saying that he didn't do this beforehand, but as reports go, after his mother passed away, he really kind of dove into a macabre, there that word is again, fascination with pulp magazines and graphic magazines,
right?
And just really grotesque stuff. Anything they can get his hands on, and you can just imagine the fragile state of mind that he's in, as distraught as he is emotionally already, and then he decides to look into these grotesque magazines. Mike, I mean, what's going on there? Is he trying? What is he trying to do?
Oh, God, I don't know. He's trying to figure something out or learn something, or that was just another one of the beginnings of his feeding into his twisted sexual deviance.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, he's
He missed his mother so much that, all of this whipped together,
It's like he was so, I mean, was he so deadened that he was deadened inside that he was just trying to find some sort of stimulus, anything that would, here's that word again, arouse him in any sort of way, not just sexually, just mentally, he needed this deplorable material in order to do that. And of course, as we all know, stuff like that, as maybe successful as it might be initially, it will wear off. That effect will wear off for those diving into this type of content, and they eventually will need more and more and more, until it gets to the absolutely disgusting, which Mr. Ed Gein absolutely did.
Well, this getting into these books and losing his mother, that was like him just starting to push himself off the top of the water slide. And it was a big ass water slide.
Right. There's no stopping on when you're on that water slide. None whatsoever.
Exactly.
To me, Ed Gein comes across as someone who never grew up. Is that safe to say?
Sure. That would probably fit.
Well, you were kind of looking up, you were pondering that.
Pondering, yeah.
Do you disagree with that? I mean, that.
No, I was just trying to think of what all would lead to that thought of him never really growing up.
Well, his utter dependence on his mother.
Exactly. I was the mother thing came into my mind right away too. That's would be part of that.
And how utterly frightening is it too when you think back? Well, you look back at the material on this man. He was well liked. He was considered an odd duck, that's for sure.
Oh, and in school, bullied all the time because he had things that bullies would pick on. Like he had a lisp. He had his tongue was somewhere on his tongue that made it had a speech impediment, and
kids could
one
be
of his
cruel,
eyes
man.
was kind of a lazy eye that kind of looked off in another direction, and
kids
like
kids
that.
can be cruel, man, and that can have a profound effect on you.
Oh, sure it can. Yeah.
Again, not making excuses. It happens to, sadly, the majority of kids probably, and the majority of them do not turn into deranged murderers. So there's that. But he was thought of as a smart kid. He was thought of as a decent student. There wasn't anything that really stood out that much. Although people who knew him in his younger days said that he did have like sudden outbursts of laughter.
Yeah, of laughter. Yeah, for no reason. That you just start.
No
laughing.
reason. Yeah.
Outburst of laughing. It wasn't just
Outbursts.
giggling. It was like laughter, all out laughter. Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's like that almost sounds like a Tourette's type of issue going on there.
And
but
that could possibly be a form of Tourette's. There's many forms of Tourette's, and that could be part of it.
but
Not saying that people that have Tourette's are going to go and
no, of course not.
cut somebody's nipples off and
turn into a
do
belt.
things with them.
But as getting back to like it was it wasn't. We're not talking about a metropolis here. I mean, this was a low population,
just small rural area,
right?
Rural
in Wisconsin, rural in Wisconsin, and
halfway between Milwaukee and Minneapolis, actually.
Yeah, you're right.
Which I was mentioning to you earlier would be, that'd be an interesting road trip to take.
Man, you know what?
And find the land where this house used to be. But then you threw in, but there's probably a mini mall there.
Right. I just hope it's not named after Gein. Gein's Marketplace. I don't think so. Well,
Gein Meat Market.
No. Yeah, right. I don't think so.
Meat Market and Tanning Company.
Yeah, they specialize in leather. Woohoo!
Yeah. Gein Leather Goods.
No. Well, as longtime listeners know, ding, 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 we focus on all things paranormal. And so Mike and I were kind of bantering a little bit before recording. Like, man, can you imagine if it's still like an open area, desolate area, if there's nothing there? And if you know what has come about the Gein property, let us know. But you'd think there'd be some sort of just crazy residual imprinted energy
Oh,
there.
exactly.
So
Go there and just, pitch a tent right there where the house was.
yeah, and not in the sick way either. Like literally pitch a tent.
No, yeah.
Physically put up the tent, sleep in it, crawl in it, whatever you want to do. But
yeah. And Paul, I wouldn't sleep all night long.
that's very true. Very true. I don't think I could.
Yeah.
Okay, again, now tracing back here. As an adult, even after, when all this, well, I'm going to use the term lightly, tragedy happened in his lifetime, because it was tragic, but he could have been the cause behind his brother's death. You never know. He was essentially well-liked, and people hired him as a handyman around, the countryside. He was a babysitter, for God's sakes. People trusted him with their children.
Yeah.
And Ed says that he related best to children. Again, he never grew up. And they're just, obviously, they're easier for him to communicate with.
Mm-hmm.
Not an authoritative figure at all. Again, the wheels, the psychosis are just continue to spin, man. Continue to spin. After his mother's death, Mike, he kept his mother's, it was just him in the house now, obviously. Just Ed. He kept his mom's room untouched.
Yeah, immaculate, yes.
Absolutely
and the rest
immaculate.
of it was just trashed, a hoarder's type trashed.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And,
and his mother was an immaculate housekeeper. She kept her house immaculate while she was alive. But it just all went to hell after she passed away. And then, like you said, her bedroom was like a shrine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people theorize is that he was in denial, and that this is why he kept his mother's room untouched, and he never looked in it, never did anything about it. It was almost like he was living in denial that she hadn't died. Do you buy into that at all?
That's possible. Yeah. His mind can go in any direction, and who knows what. So that could very well be a possibility. Well, but if he was in denial and thinking she might walk through the door any day, why would he go so far as to want to dress in a woman's skin suit?
Well, sure, right.
When he had to replace his mother with skin suits from women.
Yeah, this is when we start getting into the depraved and the deplorable and the downright disgusting. This is when Ed starts getting into, that sly little hobby of digging up freshly dead corpses in neighboring graveyards, Mike. And they were usually, more often than not, if not all the time, the corpses of younger to middle-aged women. I should say most of them were middle-aged women closer to his mother's age, right? Am I right on that one?
I believe so, yes.
Like 40 to 60, or generally speaking. And I think he said he did this over 40 times. I believe he visited these grave sites attempting to... Well, let's dive into what he attempted to do, Mike.
Sure.
This is gross.
Beyond
gross. I'll preface this by saying that Ed claimed that when he was into this grave robbing site, this body snatching phase of his, he claimed that he was always in a trance or daze-like state when he was doing this. And sometimes he would snap out of it in the middle of when he was digging up these bodies and almost essentially ask, what the hell am I doing? And then he would take off back home and not finish the job, so to speak. I don't personally buy that stuff.
Right.
I think that's a bunch of bullshit, excuse making, but what in the hell is going on? This is where it all starts to go wacky and way downhill way fast, Mike.
Well, he had plans of what he wanted to come up with and what he wanted to make, and he had to have the materials for it.
Yeah, God.
So that's how he started getting his materials.
And I do also want to say that there are several reports, if you look out there online, you do your research, that he was attempting to build a quote-unquote mommy suit that he wanted to eventually be able to climb into and engulf himself, surround himself physically, literally, by the skin of his fake mother. So, Say what you will about that. That I saw stuff that he actually.
That would get hot in the summertime.
You would think so. A little smelly.
Yeah.
You know,
boy, I tell you.
a little smelly. This I asked you this before we started recording, Mike. I said that were you able to find anything about like what they did with his mother's body? Like, was there a proper funeral? Was she buried?
Yeah, I don't know.
Was she cremated? Because I asked because I had seen a report, and I don't know. I don't buy into it, but it's out there. It said that he had actually skinned his own mother. Now that could be absolute bullshit. It absolutely could be, but it is out there. So if you guys know for sure or not if that is BS or if it's a mystery, let us know. But
which would be another reference to the Bates
Psycho.
story.
Yeah. You had a brain fart with the Psycho title there, I think, or something.
I did.
I don't know what's happening there, Mike. Are you okay? Are you okay?
Yeah.
You're not having a
I
mommy.
just had
Not having a
visions
mommy
of
moment, are you?
Something, yeah. Woo.
He seriously did. It's like Mike. He turned his head and he's like he had a clear and concise thought, and all of a sudden he was like just done. It's like your thoughts hit a brick wall. It was interesting.
Yeah, it did.
That was interesting though. I hope you're okay.
I am okay. No, what made me do that is all of a sudden a thing popped up at the top of my screen, remaining meeting time.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, we got to. Yeah. Don't worry about that.
I didn't know I'd get that on my end.
Oh, you did.
Didn't notice that before.
That's the first time. First time for everything.
Must be. Well, that's good. I can keep track of the time.
That's perfect timing. We will need to take a brief break, a time traveling excursion, but to our listeners, it will be literally timeless. It'll be seamless.
And we are going to dig into some nastiness.
Good God,
it's been bad already, but holy jeez.
Well, what better time? Again, I did it briefly before, but we'd love to see you guys on our Patreon. I'm not kidding. There's so much cool content on there. We're having a great time. It's good quality episodes, man. They're exclusive episodes. They're just like these. If you hate these, then you won't go check them out. But
yeah.
And we
hate these, they aren't going to be listening anyway.
Absolutely. So, and I can't help myself again, but we are super excited to announce, if you missed the last episode, that we had an awesome time appearing on Talk is Jericho again and talked the haunting of Ted Bundy with Mr. Jericho, Chris Jericho himself. We cannot wait for that episode to drop. Man, what a blast that was.
Yeah.
Spread the word. When it drops and you listen, spread the PARAnomaly ZONE word. We're looking forward to it. So,
not to mention guests that we have coming up.
Oh, awesome guests. Yeah.
We had just come into a whole new how would you call it? A whole new thing.
A batch. We came into a whole new batch of awesome paranormal pals that we can.
You were contacted actually by somebody that is going to help us with many guests. Wonderful guests. Wonderful content.
Yep, looking forward to it. So
yes,
one thing that's interesting. I like to throw it out to longtime listeners. Send us requests of anyone you would love for us to chat with, because we will definitely reach out to them and see if they would.
Longtime listeners, or if you've only listened to 2 shows.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you very much. For a long time or just 2. So, well, Mike, let's take that brief time traveling excursion and let's come back and let's gross ourselves out by this.
Yeah, I'm already grossed out. I'll probably have to take 2 showers during this time travel.
I was just going to say, I'm going to shower right now myself. So, all right, hold on, boys and girls. Don't go anywhere. We shall be right back. All right, we are back after yet another successful time traveling excursion. Okay, Mike, let's get into the nitty gritty here. The gross nitty gritty.
I got my bucket.
I got my bucket. I think I'm going to throw up.
Yeah. Give me a bucket.
A bucket for Monsieur. So let's just start this, Mike. And we're gonna go back and forth here a lot of ways. After Ed was arrested, and we'll get to his arrest here shortly. Ed was arrested November 16th, 1957 at his farmhouse.
Yeah.
And upon his arrest, he starts to talk. And as I mentioned earlier, he said that he's had that wacky hobby of digging up freshly deceased bodies. He did this over 40 times. And upon searching his house, after the, I guess, mysterious circumstances of the disappearances of the two women that he confessed to murdering, Bernice
Right.
Warden.
And the one woman, she was freshly killed
Yeah.
basically when they got there. And the scene that these police walked into, I mean, after walking in there, they went out and threw up outside.
Well, the
It
one
was so
sheriff,
horrible.
the sheriff, the arresting sheriff, who he actually basically went insane. He was so traumatized by what he saw and what Ed Gein told him that he started to lose his faculties, basically, went insane, and he suffered health problems and died prematurely. And that can very well be attributed to as another murder of Ed Gein, because what he did literally killed another person because he was so traumatized by it.
Yeah, or at least manslaughter. I don't know.
Yeah, right.
I don't know how that goes.
But it's crazy because during his confession, Mike, during his first confession of doing all this, this sheriff actually got so upset that he attacked Ed and slammed his head down onto the table in the room that he was talking to him. And because he did this, all of what Ed said was deemed insubmissible because the sheriff attacked him because he couldn't help himself.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame him.
But like we were saying, the two women that Ed confessed to murdering, Bernice Warden was the hardware store owner who went missing, and they were able to tie Ed to her disappearance because when she disappeared the morning of, well, essentially the morning of her murder, the last receipt that she had signed was from an item purchased by Mr. Ed Gein, and so obviously right there, the link is right there. And another local tavern owner, Mary Hogan, was another victim of Mr. Ed Gein. The two confessed victims, even though he is a suspect in several more. But the grisly details, some of the grisly items, Mike, found upon his arrest and upon the search of his house, aside from finding the woman dangling from her ankles, slit from the groin. Slit from the groin down.
Yep. The head was in a bag.
That right. Well, there was a heart. Her heart was pulled out, found in a
saucepan.
In the saucepan, and I believe it was Mary Hogan's head who was found.
Okay, yeah.
The
heart, her heart in the saucepan on the stove. Yeah. I mean, good Lord.
Well, some of the items here, Mike, do you want to read some of these off or do you want me to read them off?
I have a few things written down here. Some of the things, a trash can and several chairs that were upholstered in human skin, a belt and a corset. I'm sure he had to have a corset to be able to, get himself tightened in so he can get into that woman's suit.
Absolutely. They
were made of human nipples, human skulls made into bowls for who knows what he did with that.
They were all women's nipples too.
Yes, they were. I don't know. Go ahead and take over if you've got. More of a list there.
I know it's just so grotesque. As you said, Mike, human skin covering several chairs made out of human skin. As you said, the waste basket made of human skin, skulls hanging off of his bedposts.
Yes, exactly. And then faces that were taken off of people's bodies, faces, and there's 9 of them hung on the wall. Like,
then he would wear these faces.
They were made for him to wear.
He would walk. Okay, now try and put yourself in the mindset, that, Mike, and listeners. What in God's name is going through this man's head?
Yeah. And that's where you get the parallel from that and the inspiration for Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah. Well, and Silence of the Lambs, there's
exactly.
Yeah. The parallel, the influences there, bowls, Mike, made out of human skulls.
Mm-hmm.
Just picture this man eating his Rice Krispies out of a human's head.
Yeah. Snap. Crack,
crackle, pop. Damn it! No, I wasn't even thinking about snap, crackle, pop. Damn it!
Well, I hope it wasn't Captain Crunch because that would ruin
That's
Captain
even
Crunch.
worse. Yeah. No.
But there's pictures that you can find on Google or whatever that I've seen, like a pair of gloves that were made, and you can just see how they would fit somebody, and the lampshades that were made out of the human skin, and it's just too bizarre to even think about.
Well, we can't wrap our minds around it.
Yeah.
I literally cannot wrap my mind around it.
Yeah, it's tough.
As you mentioned, Mike, the corset made from female torso, skinned from the shoulders to the waist.
Right. Yeah.
Leggings made from human leg skin. As you said, Mike, masks made from the skin of female heads. Yep, Mary Hogan's face mask in a paper bag.
Mm-hmm.
Bernice Warden's entire head in a burlap sack. So you were right about Bernice Warden's head. But her heart was also found in that saucepan.
Yeah, on the stove. Yeah.
This one in particular is beyond disgusting and demented to me. 9 vulva.
Yeah.
Found in a shoebox.
Right.
And
exactly.
I also learned, Mike, read earlier that Ed confessed to at times placing these severed vulva on his crotch in moments of fantasy, and he could sit there and whatever the hell was happening, he would get off on fantasizing being a woman, essentially.
Right.
Now he claimed that he claimed that he was not a necrophiliac. But you can be into necrophilia just by simply being aroused by body parts.
Oh,
Dead body parts.
Absolutely. It's
And I don't think it's necrophiliac. Is it necrophiliac or necrophilic? I guess I'm not.
Necrophiliac.
Okay.
Necrophilia.
And necrophiliac. Okay.
Yep.
As you said, Mike, an entire belt made from female human nipples.
Yeah.
Okay, now just I don't mean to be crude. How the hell is that? I was going to say fastened. How the hell? I guess how was that put together? I mean, help me out here, Mike. I'm ignorant. Is it just sewn? Are they just sewn together?
I've
Come
never
on.
done that before, so I don't know.
Wait,
you could use your imagination.
You've never thought about putting together a belt made of female nipples, Mike? I thought that was common everyday thoughts for all of us normal chaps.
Yeah, would you have to have some kind of like a backing for that? Like maybe like felt or something?
That's what I'm thinking. Was there glue? Was it simply thread and needles?
Stitch witchery. I don't know.
Stitch witchery.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just looking at pictures here that the lampshades are freaking
they're so
horrifying.
Just disturbing to look at. If you have a weak stomach, don't go look at this stuff. But it's just that, Mike, like you said, it's that car crash fascination.
Yeah. And here are the gloves. I mean, the gloves, they're showing a pair of gloves made out of human skin. And you can see wear marks where like he would have had them on and like he used them. And there's like areas where it looks like it's gotten dirty from, like him brushing up against something or handling things.
Sure.
And yeah, I don't know.
Also found in the house 4 severed noses.
Right. Yeah.
I think, Mike, we were talking earlier. Were there not also human lips found like attached to curtain, like the strings you would pull to open up a curtain? Human lips.
At the bottom of the string the part that you hold on to when you pull the cord.
Now what? Okay, this is beyond mommy boy mother obsession stuff, isn't it? I mean,
absolutely.
What in God's name does that have anything to do with him missing his mom? Yeah. I want to know that. I mean, I don't mean to sound callous and cold right there because some psychologist would put me in my place, I'm sure, and tell me the truth about it. But it's just, again, I can't wrap my mind around it. What is that? Is he so traumatized? Is he so... There's no turning back. He's so warped that this is just kind of casual ho-hum stuff to keep him busy. I don't get
there's
it.
a whole method to his madness throughout the entire thing.
And as far as we know, he didn't skin animals and make artifacts out of animal skins.
No, that would have been defeated the purpose of making a human female
It had
skin.
to be human. It had to be human artifacts.
Right.
So Mike, I need another damn shower already. I took 2 in our time traveling excursion.
I'm sure
you did. And as you said, Mike, the lampshade made from the skin of a human face. Just imagine turning on that lamp, Mike, and then the shade, when it turns on and you see, the closed eyes, you see the shape of the nose, you see the stretched mouth. And you just try and put yourself in that mindset of where it doesn't bother you at all. It's like, yep.
Yeah.
And that's just a human face, stretched human skin staring right back at me on my lampshade.
He did have some kind of a style to his decor for the lampshades. I had read where he made lampshades out of tattooed skin.
Oh no! Oh, really? I didn't see that.
Yeah, I saw that. And
so he was. So he was in artistic.
Yeah, something.
Oh, good Lord. Something before I forget, Mike. Before I forget, we're not done with this grossness here. 4 people went missing before Ed was arrested and convicted of murdering Bernice Ward and then Mary Hogan. 4 people in the Plainfield area went missing. 8-year-old Georgia Weckler went missing on May 1st, 1947. 15-year-old Evelyn Hartley went missing October 24th, 1953. And 2 deer hunters, Victor Travis and Ray Burgess, went missing as well. And a lot of people think, Mike, investigators included, think that Ed Gein could have very well had something to do with their disappearance.
Oh, I'm sure.
It just seems kind of too coincidental, doesn't it?
It does. I would
be.
Yeah, I would say there's got to be some kind of a connection there.
Isn't it, on a brief side note, isn't it terrifying, Mike, how many unsolved crimes there are? How many unsolved murders there are?
Thousands. I mean,
countless,
every year.
Countless. I mean, this poor 8-year-old girl who goes missing, their family still has no idea what the hell happened to her.
Yeah.
This 15-year-old who was babysitting, helping, her dad calls home, coming back from the movie, he calls at 9:00 at night just to see that, that Evelyn would answer the phone, and she didn't. And the dad gets worried naturally, goes home. She's gone. The baby that she was babysitting, sleeping quietly and content in the crib. Evelyn is missing, blood on the floor. I can't imagine the horror the father was going through at that time. And stuff like this, it just doesn't go away, Mike. The families are, they're affected, obviously.
Well,
horribly affected for the rest of their lives.
The rest of their lives. They'll never be able to get past it.
It's important to think about, it's not only are these people who are killed victims, but countless others who are family members and friends are also victims. I mean, it's
absolutely,
that might be a fairly obvious statement, but I think it needs to be said. Michael Carbno, what do you got on Mr. Ed Gein that we haven't covered so far, my friend? I got a bunch of wacky, weird crap going right here, but I feel like we may be repeating ourselves. But
no, like you talk about the pop culture of something like this, where it
right,
the movies that have been made out of, or characters in movies that have been inspired by this one man, and that's another thing that's going to keep what he did alive, is just the thought of the inspiration for these movies was because of this person,
right.
And some of the most horrifying movies. I mean, Silence of the Lambs, that there's a lot going on in that,
of course.
Movie, and Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw Massacre,
so,
just the inspiration from one man to make a movie that's that graphic and horrifying.
No,
I mean, they did take it to another level.
Oh, of course,
for the movie. But yeah,
what do you, Mike? What do you think about the fact that Ed Gein was found insane and therefore was basically let go, basically, to live a comfortable life, like you said, Mike, 3 meals a day, a warm bed at night, a roof over his head for the rest of his life. He lived to be 77 years old till he died of lung cancer in 1984. Right. I mean, what do you think about that? What do you think about I was insane, and so therefore I am not responsible for what I did? I mean, we're opening up a whole can of worms with that question, but I'm really curious about your thoughts on that.
Well, was he really insane? I mean, he had to have some type of insanity going on to even think of this stuff. But
I know, I get that. But
did he feel justified in what he did, or was it just something that, like a normal person would go and take a bus ride to the park? Was this just normal to him to do this stuff? Was it insanity? Was he
Hey, Mike, your home sweet haunted home sign just really swung back and forth there.
Did it?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you have a fan blowing on it?
There is a fan going, so it's probably could very well be that. Yep.
You see it moving right now there?
I do.
Okay,
yeah.
So it's probably just your fan.
Yeah.
Damn it. First time I noticed it though, so I'm sorry. Sorry,
I
everybody.
I totally lost my.
But
thought.
The insanity thing. This man never served 1 day in prison.
Right.
How does that make you feel? To me, that bugs the hell out of me.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, does he feel? Was he responsible for all of these things that he did, or is it insanity that it wasn't his fault? It was it was in his mind. It was insanity. Do we look at him as a cold, calculated murderer and whatever else he did, or do we look at him as somebody that was sick and needed help,
and he couldn't control himself?
It's such a hard thing to think about in that direction because of the just the level of atrocity that he, it was.
Well, and it makes you realize how many people who are not insane, who are manipulative enough to use that defense, to try and get away with crap.
Yeah.
That they were fully aware of what they were doing. Again, going back to Ted Bundy refused to plead insane. He refused to. He could still be alive today, Mike, because he was offered that bargain to plead guilty, and you'll be in prison for the rest of your life. Plead guilty by reasons of insanity. Ted refused. I mean, it's talk about difficult to wrap your mind around, man. It bugs me. It bugs me that Ed Gein never served 1 day in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, to say, to me, this is coming across as we should almost feel sorry for poor Ed. I don't feel sorry for him. Should I? Am I cold-hearted? Do I need to feel sorry for Ed Gein?
I will never feel sorry for him.
Oh man, alive! We're running out of time here. Well, no, we got a pretty decent amount of time left to go here, unless Mikey needs to leave because he's so anxious to shower. I don't know what's going on here.
No, I'm good.
You're good.
I'm fine.
Oh, that's right. That's what I wanted to dive into briefly. Let's wrap it up on this, Mike. There are theories as to what was driving Mr. Ed Gein, and if it sounds like I'm not focused on what I'm saying, is because I'm typing in stuff while I'm trying to speak at the same time. It's a little difficult. It's like rubbing your belly and tapping the top of your head at the same time. But trying to do that every now and then. But
have you noticed, or have you seen if there's any video of interviews with him at all, or him?
That's a good question.
Being questioned or talking about these things. I would love to.
That I don't know, man.
Check into that because I didn't really look for it, so I don't know if there is or not. But it'd be interesting to see, get a feel of the whole thing just by listening to
him, right?
Interviews with him directly.
All right, Mike.
But,
Let's
yeah,
talk
just
about
don't-
some of these sociologists and psychologists' theories
Mhm.
of what was driving Mr. Ed Gein. Briefly, as fast as we can here, the 5 theories that a lot of them came to conclude were driving Mr. Ed Gein to commit these atrocities. The arousal theory, the cognitive theory, the routine activities theory, the nurture theory, and the life course theory. Now, this I'm going to have to read as fast as I can, okay?
Okay.
And I
All
want
right.
I want your thoughts on it.
Okay.
The life course theory, very briefly, I'm skipping through a lot here. Throughout an individual's life, they experience events, which may be good or bad, that ultimately shape or influence the rest of their behavioral development. The propensity to criminality is intensified through problematic transitions in life, usually ranging from events such as precocious sexuality, abusive households, and joining gang organizations. By directly or indirectly engaging in events like these, especially at a young age, individuals are more likely to adopt law-violating behavior and are less likely to divert from the path of criminality. So life course, basically, Mike, life affects you. That's basically what that says to me.
Right, exactly. Well, starting as a young child, he did have that, what his mother instilled in him, and the, that I guess would fit to a certain degree. The bullying possibly that he had in school because of his
Yes. Yep.
appearance and voice and everything.
It says here because of his mother's restriction, basically on how she was trying to raise her kids, Ed Gein didn't have an indirect outlet that he could utilize to prevent the accumulation of his subconscious frustration against his circumstances at home. So we kind of talked about that earlier, where it just basically all came to a head at one point, and he just needed some sort of stimulus to basically help him explode finally, because he had been so repressed for so long. The nurture theory, briefly, growing up in an abusive environment and other factors such as poor school performance and peer pressure can engender the path to criminality. Okay. Yeah.
It was if his father was very abusive, and then the school situation.
Nurture is basically like nature, Mike. It's like nature and nurture, saying his environment affects
Right.
how you grow up. So I get that. Like you said, again, the bullying, and bullying can have profound effect on people. There's no doubt about that.
Absolutely. Well, how many kids have committed suicide because of it?
Oh, no kidding, man. That's so sad. The routine activities theory claims that victimization is promoted or influenced by the availability of targets, absence of authorities, and presence of motivated offenders. This theory explains that it can be applied anywhere, even in suburban communities where safety and crime is less likely occur. In the case of Gein, his targets were readily available because most of his victims were robbed and mutilated from the grave, with some of his victims, like Bernice Warden and Mary Hogan, being suitable as they were alone at the time of murder. Furthermore, the absence of authorities played a significant role in Gein not being apprehended by the time of his first offense. So basically, routine activities theory is saying it was easy to do, so why not do it? That's how I interpreted that. There's no authorities there to hold him back. The dead aren't going to fight back.
Right.
And his murder victims were basically as innocent, pristine, and harmless and unthreatening as you could possibly imagine. So
Right.
Ed's like, well, I got it for the taking. I'm going to do it. Nothing's going to happen to me. Hope I'm not boring you to death, Mike. You look like you're about ready to fall asleep.
No, I'm intently listening.
Oh, but I know I'm really going through this fast as I can. I apologize. Well, you can imagine what the cognitive theory is. Cognitive is a psychological perspective that emphasizes how individuals perceive, represent, and react to their issues and surrounding environment. Now, using this theory, experts can explain the root of antisocial behavior in criminals and how these individuals perceive crime. An individual that suffers from a deficit in cognitive function may perceive information incorrectly or slowly, which thus far results in poor decisions. Because of this, they're unable to realize their circumstances and the negative consequences of crime, leading them to conclude that it's ultimately and solely beneficial and gratifying. Interesting. That's really interesting.
Right.
So they're like, we don't understand why it's a crime. And so, we don't understand the negative consequences of what we're doing. And this actually, it makes me feel good. So what's wrong with it?
Right. Right. Yeah. All of these things to point to where, the guy has got to be insane.
And last but not least, the arousal theory, good God, suggests that individuals seek a preferred level of arousal in their lifetime. And because of that, their need for a high amount of stimulation may be the cause of violent and aggressive attitudes. Not enough stimulation causes one to be bored and fatigued, while high levels of stimulation can lead to anxiety and stress.
And that's a definite,
Yeah, like you said, Mike, even with his supposedly finding himself aroused at a young age by seeing that hog mutilated. Yeah. I mean, there's something going on there. There is something going on there. Again, we're repeating ourselves, but that repressed state of his normal feelings, he couldn't express his normal childhood boyish feelings because they were sinful. And they're going to come out some other ways. They're going to come out in warped ways.
But there is one other possible theory that was not mentioned that they did not think of, that in our realm we do need to think of.
Well, lay it on me. What do you got?
Demonic possession.
Oh my God, Mike.
I mean, when you see a picture, that picture that I've looked at of him being taken away, and it looked like it could have been on the farm, but he's got handcuffs on and the sheriff is there, and that smile and his eyes in that picture are freaking terrifying.
There's something about them. They're just, there's there's nothing behind them, but there's everything behind them.
Everything that has been done is an extremely evil thing.
Mm-hmm.
What we look at and think of in our minds is extremely evil. Just wanted to throw that out there.
No, I like that because, well, again, the Haunting of Ted Bundy episode, we absolutely focused on the very real possibility that Ted...
a lot of things point to that with him.
That Ted had that entity that he referred to as the entity inside of him. Did Ed Gein have some sort of paranormal influence? That's a good... I'm glad you brought that up because that's very intriguing to think about, Mike. What would drive him to perform these just unbelievably grotesque medical experiments, essentially? I mean, I said essentially. That's a great thought, Mike. I don't know, man. I really don't know.
We'll never know.
We'll never know. We will never. I don't know if I want to know, but I do.
Yeah.
Know. It will. If any sort of information, any sort of answer can bring any sort of comfort to victims or victims' families, then more power to it. And again, that's why it's important to continue to talk about people such as Ed Gein. But
Mike, what would really be interesting? One last point.
Sure.
Is if you could get Ed Gein, John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez, and the list goes on, Jeffrey Dahmer, get all of them together in one room, sit them around a table, and just sit behind one-way mirror glass and just listen to what they talk about.
Oh, good Lord.
Just see what kind of conversations that comes up.
Oh,
could you imagine that?
Oh my God. That'd be a fascinating movie.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah. And then they all escape.
Mike, let's make a movie.
They escape and they they're like a band of brothers.
What? Mike, let's take out some loans. Let's put aside all of our funds and let's focus all of our creative abilities on the movie here. I'll play Richard Ramirez. You can play Ed Gein.
Yeah, no thanks.
I know. And everyone else. Good Lord. Well, Mike, what are your final thoughts on the Butcher of Plainfield, Mr. Ed Gein? This has been a blast, and I'm not saying that lightly. I know blast sounds like such a positive adjective, but it is so intriguing and fascinating to talk about. Do you have any final thoughts on Ed Gein, Mike?
Pure sickness, pure.
Yeah.
I am going to attach the word evil onto it because,
okay,
just that picture, like I said, his face, I just see evil in that freaking face that he had.
So you're not buying the insanity thing. Or do you?
I do to a certain point, but
so are you, if you're insane, are you evil? Or can you be both is what I'm saying?
That's a good question too.
Because technically you aren't evil if you're insane and you commit these acts because you don't serve time in prison.
If you're not, if you weren't, capable of knowing that you're doing something wrong. I mean,
I just hate that so much.
A lot of his stuff was so cold and calculated though. How can you sit there for how many hours and hours and hours did he sit there sewing this stuff together, planning it out?
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not know what you're doing?
How can you be insane that whole time?
Yeah.
And so delicately and just precisely attaching these nipples together to make a belt. You're insane when you're doing that.
But, if in his mind it was no different than knitting a scarf, I mean,
Right. And I get it. The moment I said that, I was like, well, I can picture some listeners getting frustrated saying, just because you're insane doesn't, I'm like thinking of like the stereotypical like Warner Brothers Bugs Bunny cartoon or something. Like I was an insane person just literally like bouncing off the walls like wah, 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 in a straight jacket. Daffy Duck, in a straight jacket, going nuts, unable to control themselves physically. And I get that. I'm not trying to compare the two or connect the two.
Yeah, it's beyond our minds.
But again, Mike, like you said, there was so much thought. There was so much effort put into this, and it's so difficult to conceive and comprehend.
Yeah,
it's like, well, I didn't mean to do that. Oh, you found a whole bathtub found full of severed vulva and nipples, and any number of other genitalia. Oh, I was insane when I did that. Yeah. So don't get mad at me.
And if you, God forbid, start to really picture these events, like how can you even picture somebody cutting these pieces off of a body?
Yeah.
And, just getting the right cut and how much he wants cut off. There's a lot of thought going into that.
There is.
Oof.
I'm not saying this lightly. He was being artistic with them.
Oh, sure.
He was being as creative as he could. He wanted to display these like they were just a precious piece of artwork.
Yeah. And like he could wake up in the morning and go, let's see, which one of these faces should I wear today?
Yeah.
God.
And the fact is, by the way, he's doing this when he's working as a handyman and babysitting kids and stuff. And so he's not insane when he's doing that.
Right.
I mean, I don't know.
We got to see if there's some interviews of him that have been taped.
That's a good That's a good idea. Yeah.
Either that or after this, I just got to, the next episode that we do, it's going to be on a Disney character. Okay.
Paranormal Pluto or something like that.
There you go.
I know. I get you, Mike. I get you.
What did Snow White really do with those dwarfs?
Well, we know what happened to Grumpy. That's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, nothing. That's why he's grumpy.
That's why he's grumpy. Right.
God damn it! What happens to me? Jesus.
That was a great Grumpy. That was a good Grumpy there, Mike.
Yeah.
Well, hey, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. We're running out of time.
We are, and this has been utterly fascinating, intriguing, in grotesque and deplorable ways. That's for sure.
Yeah.
But this was our first dive into true crime. I think we did a pretty decent job. How about you?
Well, let's think that we did, but let's
also
wait till
go by
what the listeners
right. What do you guys think? What do you think of our first deep dive into true crime? Because
if you want us to keep doing true crime, let us know. I think it'd go over really well.
I do too. I mean, it was enjoyable, as sick and depraved as the content is. We had a good time. So if you guys enjoyed it, please let us know. We'll only get better. Trust us.
Yeah.
We'll get better at that. But
we've been saying that for years, though.
Yeah. I know. Hey, come on now.
That's okay.
We're okay. We're up to like 5 listeners now, I think.
Yeah, don't start that again. No.
Well, I could. All right. Well, thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. This has been episode something. I'm not even keeping track of the episodes anymore. I haven't for a while, but Paranomaly Zone coming your way every week with brand new content. We hope you guys enjoy it. Again, give our Patreon page a shot. We know you will enjoy it. Mike, thank you so much, my friend. Until next time, what do our paranormal pals and true crime listeners need to do?
To the best of your ability, peace out.